Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SAS Viya Release Highlight Show, our first episode of 2023. I'm Tiago de Souza, and if you've been here before, things might look a little different. As you can see, we have a brand new set. What do you think? Today, we're talking about what's new with Viya in release 2023.01. We'll begin with the rundown, where Sasha Karpinski will talk about the SAS Code editor in Microsoft Excel, which allows users to write SAS code, submit the code, and insert SAS Studio code results into their Excel spreadsheet, all without having to leave the application. Next, we'll hear from Joe Katz on SAS Visual Forecasting, recapping updates from the past 6 months, including forecast server project migration, new interactive modeling capabilities, decomposition analysis, the new save data node, and more. In today's release talk, we'll be talking to Alexei Vaudilin about the SAS Provider for Apache Airflow. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, I give to you the rundown.
Hello, and welcome to the 2022.12 release highlights for SAS for Microsoft 365 for December 2022. In this release, SAS for Microsoft 365 now enables users to work with SAS programs in Excel using a new SAS Code editor. Users can create new programs or open and edit existing programs, execute SAS code, and insert program results or tables into their Excel workbooks. They can save programs locally with their Excel workbook or save them to SAS content for use in other SAS applications or by other users. If programs are rerun to capture changes to code or updates to data, embedded content can be updated in your Excel workbook with just one click.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Katz, and today I'll provide an update for SAS Visual Forecasting. This is a cumulative update of the monthly releases from April through December 2022. Let's start with Forecast Server project migration to Visual Forecasting. Users can view a migration report in the Visual Forecasting project summarizing content that was or was not successfully migrated from a Forecast Studio project forecast archive file or a FAR file. For SAS administrators and SAS professional services team members, there is integration with the SAS content assessment tool for profiling and inventorying of Forecast Server projects in the SAS 9 environments. We are also continuing to build out the interactive modeling capabilities within Visual Forecasting. When opening an interactive modeling node, users can view a dialog listing the series where the champion model could not be reapplied. This dialog appears following a data update or any other time the interactive modeling node must be rerun. Users can download the code and data for all models except intermittent demand models, irrespective of their error status. This enables users to examine the code used to generate a specific model. Users can examine the failed models in detail and more effectively communicate with tech support. This also enables users to analyze the models in different clients such as SAS Studio, Python, or R. In the series analysis view, users can now perform decomposition analysis. Users can now also create custom models and copy and edit existing models for moving average, random walk, regression and multi-regression, and curve fitting models. In the pipeline, we've added a save data node that can be attached to any modeling strategy node. This allows users to save output tables that are selected for generation in the modeling node to a user-specified CAS location. The export of the forecast or out4 dataset is now included as part of the batch API code. We have also added full support for visual forecasting capabilities on SAS Viya with Single Store. This includes all procs, packages, and actions, and the Model Studio UI. And lastly, we have added a few usability enhancements in Model Studio. Users can now see badge icons on champion nodes in Model Studio. A star icon indicates a pipeline champion. When the node is also an overall champion from pipeline comparison, you see two icons, the star icon and a champion ribbon icon. Support for dynamic properties in the properties pane for nodes has also been added. And you'll see this when you change the default hierarchical reconciliation level in the node.
There are just so many new features and updates to spotlight in the Viya world. Again, that was Sasha Karpinski and Joe Katz in the rundown. Now, with SAS Viya improving every month with new features and enhancements, one great opportunity to learn and use SAS Viya is to participate in the 2023 SAS Hackathon. Hoodie, please. Thank you. This is where data scientists, data engineers, and business analysts form teams to solve real-world problems for business or for humanitarian causes using analytics. In 2022, more than 1,300 individuals from 77 different countries formed 70 teams and participated in the SAS Hackathon. Let's take a look at this video to learn more. To learn more and to register for the 2023 SAS Hackathon, visit sas.com/hackathon. You can also watch the Hackathon Kickoff webcast on both the SAS YouTube channel and the SAS LinkedIn page. Remember, registration is open to February 28th, so register today. Okay, it's now time to learn more about the SAS Provider for Airflow in this month's Release Talk. Joining me now, all the way from Germany, is Alexei Vaudielin. Alexei, how are you?
Thank you, I'm doing great. How are you, Tiago?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show today. My first question for you, what is new? What are the trends in the world of data engineering and open source? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Actually, well, there is a lot that is going on in this area, right? But still, well, from what we can see, there are a few particular trends that we can emphasize and that we can separate from the others. First of all, I guess we're on the next loop in terms of data engineering lifecycle. So we're moving away from monolith, big data architectures like Hadoop and similar technologies, and we are going into more decentralized way of working with data. So we are looking into such things like data mesh, data as a product, decentralized teams, and specific tools that are needed to solve specific problems. Right? This is one concrete trend that we can definitely see, and this is where the industry is going. And the important thing here is that there are many different technologies, and now within this trend, this is very important. So this is always recommended to be able to choose a very specific sort of, to say, best of breed technology that can be used in conjunction with other technologies as part of your data engineering landscape. All right, this is one trend. And the other trend that we see, so when we have now a variety of different open source technology, not only open source, this can be also different types of vendors, third-party technologies, but also open source. So when we have this variety of technologies, and there are a lot really, so then we should also be able to orchestrate these technologies properly. Right. And for this type of tasks, we need specific solutions that can work for data orchestration. All in all, this is modern data stack that we see evolves now very, very rapidly on the market.
That's great. So given these trends, what is SAS Provider for Apache Airflow, and how does it fit into all this?
Exactly. That's a great question. So first of all, maybe let me give you some background about Apache Airflow, right? So when we discussed about modern data stack and all these technologies, so we mentioned one important thing, that there should be a way to orchestrate all these technologies together, so that I, as a data engineer, would be able to organize a complex pipeline that consists of execution of different parts, like data pipelines, programs. I also want to be able to send a notification to different systems, or, for example, to check a specific file whether it's arrived in a certain location. So I need to orchestrate all of these technologies, and this is where orchestration comes into play. And if we look at the orchestration, specifically at the orchestration domain niche, orchestration niche on the market, then we can see that there is a specific open source solution that is dominating the market at this time. This solution is called Apache Airflow. So this is a project that started in 2015 in Airbnb, and now this is one of the top 5 Apache Software Foundation projects. Well, now, if we look at the Airflow, Airflow has lots of different connectors to different systems. So this is something what they call providers. And now, exactly as you might already guessed, so SAS Provider for Airflow is a technology, is another provider in the list of these providers for Airflow. Now, I guess, well, Airflow probably has around 60 different providers, and then SAS Provider for Airflow is another provider in this list that allows to execute SAS Studio flows and SAS jobs. So we can use Airflow for orchestrating data pipelines developed within SAS.
Gotcha. Thank you. So explain what Airflow is. What are the current major capabilities of the provider?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do believe this is also a perfect transition to the demonstration that I wanted to show you today.
Let's jump right into SAS Studio. SAS Studio is a modern web-based solution for creating data pipelines in a low-code visual environment. Now, when I'm logged in here in SAS Studio, what I have on the left side in Explorer pane is my project that we are going to use throughout this demo. This project is stored in a local Git repository and versioned in Git. I have a few different SAS Studio resources that I use for this project. I have SAS Studio flows and a few other artifacts. Our focus for this demo will be on SAS Studio flows. Just to give you a little bit of background of this project. So this is very simple. What I'm going to do in this project as a data engineer, I'm going to prepare a data mart that can be used by data scientists for modeling. In order to prepare such a data mart, I'm going to use a few SAS Studio flows. SAS Studio flows is actually how we call data pipelines here at SAS. First of all, in order to prepare this data mart, I'm going to use the first data pipeline that is called load energy data. This pipeline loads information from Snowflake database to the energy table that is stored in my staging area. The other pipeline that I have here is used for uploading another dataset into a staging area so that I will be able to use this data. This one loads temperature dataset from a file that is located somewhere on a file share, and then it uploads this data exactly in the same staging area. And the final pipeline that I will be using here is feature selection. This pipeline that we have now on the canvas here is actually using a couple of data sets that are produced by the first 2 data pipelines. Specifically, it uses energy table that is created as part of load energy data pipeline, and it uses temperature table that was created in load temperature data pipeline. Then I'm going to join these data sets, and also I'm going to do a little bit of other data transformation and preparation to create a final data mart for data scientists. The important thing that I wanted to mention here is that the third data pipeline, feature selection, can run only after the first 2 data pipelines are executed. So we should ensure that energy and temperature data sets are available to be consumed by this third data pipeline. And this is exactly the task that we are going to automate and build in Apache Airflow product. So now, how we can use Apache Airflow for that? In the terms of Apache Airflow, such an overarching pipeline that orchestrates execution of a few other different tasks is called DAG. DAG actually stands for Directed Acyclic Graph. In order to create such a DAG for Apache Airflow, we need to use Python. Airflow itself is a programming-based platform, so all the DAGs, all these overarching pipelines are supposed to be created in Python. So I have already one I already have one Airflow pipeline created in here. It's called DataMart Prep Demo. I can open this pipeline and show you how it looks like. Before we dive into a few details about this pipeline, I wanted to mention that with SAS Studio we ship Python code editor that can be used for any type of Python programming. In particular, we can also use this program editor for creating and editing Airflow DAGs. Now, if we look here at the line 4 of this Airflow DAG, we can mention exactly the point of our demo today, which is SAS Provider for Airflow. SAS Provider for Airflow is essentially a Python module or Python library that we can import in our Airflow Python environment and utilize in order to create tasks that will execute SAS Studio flows. What I'm doing here in the line number 4, I import SAS Studio Flow operator. Operator is essentially a template that we can use for creating tasks for executing Studio flows. I import this operator from SAS Airflow Provider library, and then I can use this down below to create my tasks. If we take a quick look at the task number 2 in here, where I'm using SAS Studio Flow operator to create this task. This is exactly how we can create an Airflow task that executes SAS Studio Flow. We have a few different parameters in here, but essentially this is a very simple way of creating a task in Airflow. Well, a few parameters that I wanted to call out here is a path to SAS Studio Flow. This is exactly the path to my first SAS Studio Flow load energy data flow. And then I can specify a few other parameters. For example, I want to return the log of execution of this SAS Studio Flow back to Airflow. And then I also specify a connection to my SAS Viya environment where this pipeline will be executed. There are a few other parameters that I described as part of this operator. So this is how easily I can create these tasks for Airflow. Exactly the same way I'm creating task number 3, and then later on down the script, so I can create task number 5 that will execute the third data pipeline. And then I'm also using the Airflow syntax for defining dependencies between these tasks. So for example, that the third Studio Flow will execute only after flow number 1 and flow number 2 will complete the execution successfully. So this is how I define a DAG in Airflow. And the last but not the least thing that I wanted to quickly show you here is the name of this DAG. So we create this in the very beginning, and we call this DAG DataMart Prep Demo. I can also assign specific time-based triggers, or I can also incorporate some kind of logic that is provided by Airflow for supporting file triggers, so that the whole pipeline will start run on a specific file event. This could be very useful, for example, in the context of the second pipeline for loading temperature, where we are working with files stored on a file location, and we probably want to monitor when a new addition to this file arrives. I guess now that's pretty much clear about how this DAG is defined. Now, well, how does this integrates with Airflow itself? As you can mention, I've stored this DAG in my project folder underneath DAGs. So this folder is shared with my Airflow deployment. So Airflow, as long as something arrives in this folder, Airflow picks this up and visualizes in Airflow UI. Now from here we can switch exactly to Airflow interface. This is Apache Airflow that is deployed alongside with my Viya environment. And what we can see here is the list of DAGs, these Airflow workflows that we are going to execute and monitor. We can mention that one of these DAGs is exactly data mart prep demo that we've just created in SAS Studio by writing a Python script. From here, I can see the basic information about the execution of this DAG, how many successful executions I had, what is the schedule information, when this was when this DAG ran last time, and a few other informations. I can also open this up in Airflow UI. In here on the code tab, we can quickly take a look at the code of this DAG. This is exactly what we've just created in SAS Studio, where we have all definitions, all the tasks and the dependencies. And then the great thing about Airflow, it allows us to visualize this DAG in a graph diagram so that we can visually see the dependencies between different different tasks. For example, in this representation, we can see that the first two data pipelines, load energy, load temperature, are supposed to run before feature selection task, and then we can incorporate any other Airflow tasks in this data pipeline. I've also added a few dummy tasks in this pipeline so that we can get the impression that Airflow can be used not only for orchestrating Studio flows, but also any other tasks that are supported by Airflow. So in this way, we can combine different types of solutions, in particular SAS Studio flows, in one single orchestration pipeline. But now let's take a look at the most interesting thing. We've seen that we have incorporated a few time-based triggers, but now, just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to kick off this pipeline from this UI. This is also possible to in Airflow to manually trigger the execution of this DAG, and now it starts executing. I can go back into my graph view, and this is where we can also take a look at a few other interesting things about Airflow. Again, it provides a pretty friendly UI for monitoring the execution of our pipelines, so we can quickly filter out the tasks that are executing now, for example, by running status, and then we can also see what are the tasks in success status now. Well, now this task is executing on SAS Viya environment, so the execution happens on SAS Viya side, and Airflow is only responsible for providing the orchestration order of this execution. At this point, I can quickly switch to Environment Manager, which is SAS native application integrated in Viya platform. And on the Monitoring tab, we can see that there is one specific task that is now executing. This is our first load energy data pipeline. So in this view, we can also see the logs of execution. Once this task will be completed, we can download the logs from here. For example, if I refresh this view, then I can download the logs. But the great feature and advantage of this provider that we have is the ability to see the logs of execution. This is one of the most important parts of monitoring of data engineering pipelines. I can also take a look at these logs from within Apache Airflow UI. This is the capability that we provide as part of this operator. For example, what we can see here is that we created a session on SAS Viya side. We've created a compute job for executing this session, and then it started to execute on SAS Viya side. Therefore, down below we can see all SAS Studio logs that were produced by executing of these data pipelines. So I am as data engineer that works with SAS Studio flows don't really need to leave Airflow UI in order to monitor the execution of this DAG. Now I can quickly go back here and take a look at the status of the data pipeline. Now it completed the execution. Well, which is really good. We see that all tasks were executed successfully. One of the other interesting things in Airflow is that we can see the duration of the tasks on the Gantt diagram. So what we can see here is how long load energy data flow took, and the same for other flows. This is another nice capability in terms of monitoring of execution. Well, this is how it looks like in Airflow. And finally, if we go back in Environment Manager that we use for monitoring different types of tasks and jobs in SAS Viya and refresh this view, then we can also see that all these data flows were executed successfully. Just in case we would have any particular failure or error in one of these data flows, we can also fall back and stop the execution of this Airflow DAG, so we interrupt the execution if something went wrong on SAS Studio side, for example. So this is how this integration works, and I hope you really enjoyed this short demonstration where I showed you how you can orchestrate SAS Studio flows with Apache Airflow.
Lots of features here that we just saw. My question for you now is, who can benefit from these features? Are they just for one type of person with a certain level of expertise?
Well, yeah, I think it's mostly oriented for data engineers who are building orchestration pipelines on daily basis. But this is still important to mention, but the provider itself, it encapsulates lots of technical details that are needed to execute SAS Studio flows from Airflow, and therefore the provider itself can be used by almost any type of data engineer with any type of programming experience.
So how does using SAS Provider for Airflow help users? Like, what if you already use Airflow and SAS Viya, but you want to use them together? How does that work?
Exactly. So we already have a decent amount of customers who are using Airflow in their production systems, as well as they have SAS workload running in their environments. So these customers can already benefit from this provider and can incorporate orchestration of SAS Studio and can incorporate the capabilities for orchestration of SAS Studio flows in their Airflow environments. The other type of users is our new users who can actually take a look at the capabilities of Airflow and see whether it seems to be beneficial for their environments to apply this technology in conjunction with SAS Studio flows that the overall we can get the best from both technologies, SAS Studio flows for building data pipelines and Airflow for orchestration of these data pipelines and monitoring.
Makes sense. Thank you. You gave us a lot of information just now. What else is coming up with data management and open source for SAS? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, sure. Well, we are working on many new exciting capabilities. So first of all, we're focusing on adding more data engineering steps in SAS Studio. So this is one focus. And of course, we're also looking into the extension in terms of how we integrate with open source technologies. For example, we are also looking into different extensions for our Git integration for SAS Studio so that we can better integrate with CI/CD environments like GitHub, GitLab, and some others. So I'm pretty sure there is a lot that is coming.
That's awesome. A lot on the horizon to look forward to. Alexei, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Tiago.
Thanks. Well, we have reached the end of our show, but we'll be back at it again next month with more guests and more SAS Viya highlights. If you're watching this on YouTube, why not give us a like, subscribe to the SAS Users YouTube channel, and click that bell so you'll get notified for new videos and when we go live for our next show on March 21st. Also, leave us a comment on what topics you'd like to see in future shows. And don't forget to go to sas.com/hackathon to get more information and to register for this year's hackathon. We're counting on you. I've been your host, Tiago de Souza. Keep your air flowing, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.